Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our tnAchieves local update for Shelby County. My name is GrahamThomas. I'm one of our deputy directors here at tnAchieves, and so glad that you could join us today as we provide you an update. First we're going to kind of zoom out and take a statewide snapshot, let you see how tnAchieves and Tennessee Promise are doing across the entire state. And then we are going to zoom in and take a look specifically at your Shelby County data, so you can kind of get an idea of where your students stack up against the rest of the state. I'll tell you, we launched Tennessee Promise in 2014. One of the things that was written into the legislation was that every county mayor or county executive identified a group of people, appointed a group to serve on what we call the local advisory council. Really a group of people that did a couple things for us. One, provided some guidance into where we find people to support our program. We had been operating in Shelby County since 2012, so not brand new, had a lot of great local support already, but still opened some doors for us to help identify the people that can support the program. And two, provided a layer of accountability for us to report back our wins, our successes, our progress, and our struggles. And what you're going to see in this PowerPoint today in this presentation is all of those things. We're going to be really transparent and make sure that you know where your students stack up, and we want to make sure that we're serving students to the best of our ability. We also want your feedback. We want to know, hear from you throughout this presentation. You will notice that for the larger counties like Shelby, we went ahead and scheduled webinar format here, so for the sake of sound quality and everything, but we want to hear from you. So on the screen, you can use the chat box, you can use the Q&A. You've got Megan Trouble on our team is here with me today, is going to help monitor some of those questions, but feed them to me as you can. She may feed them to me live. We may save them till the end, just kind of depending on what your question is and where it is in the presentation, but want to make sure that we get those things answered. But with that, we can go ahead and kick right in here. Megan, if we can go to the next one. So quick reminder about who is tnAchieves. Who are we? We are the privately funded 501c3 that partners with the state to operate Tennessee Promise in 90 of our state's 95 counties. We launched in Knox County in 2008, and since then have worked with more than 440,000 students and 71,000 volunteer mentors, annually working with more than 600 Tennessee high schools and 67 colleges across the state. Next slide. This next slide shows our what we call core components, the first three of which have been with us really since this program was just an idea on a whiteboard in Mike Ragsdale, who was the mayor at Knox County at the time, in his office. So the first of which is the Last Dollar Scholarship that is now funded by the state in the form of Tennessee Promise, that allows students to attend one of our 13 community colleges, our 27 Tennessee colleges of applied technology, as well as a handful, 27 additional four-year universities. Each student in the 90 counties that we operate that applies for Tennessee Promise is paired with a volunteer mentor that is regularly checking in and providing guidance. And then finally, our students give back 8 hours of community service. When we launched the program 13 years ago, the scholarship piece was also privately funded by the business community in Knoxville. So we knew that if we had private donors paying for college, volunteers making sure our students were successful, we wanted our students to continue that tradition of giving back. We thought it was important then. We think it's important now. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but a piece of the program that we're really proud of. Since 2008, we've added a few layers of support. The first of which is our summer programming, and got some really exciting information specifically for Memphis to share about our summer programs today. So the first piece of it is our Summer Bridge program, which is a 3-week academic boot camp for students that are not testing in college level coursework in at least one subject, being math, reading, or writing. Students give up 3 weeks of their summer. They come every day, do an hour each day of reading, writing, and math. And then at the end, they take the placement test. This year, we had an 89% success rate with students in our Summer Bridge program. I think when you take a step back and look at the year that was 2020 and 2021, our high school students were in and out of class. The test scores across the board have been down. Really solid foundation for students to begin their college career 89% of them either testing into college level coursework or improving their test scores. The second program that we run is called Summer Institute, and it is operated in your urban core in Memphis. We target about 20 high schools in Memphis. We had 29 students go through the program this year that require all three learning support courses. Again, reading, writing, and English. They are put into a 6-week program. Instead of 3 hours a day, it's 6 or 7 hours a day, and it is credit bearing. Those learning support classes are paired with their co-requisite classes that are college credit bearing. Students have the opportunity to knock out all 9 hours of learning support and earn 9 hours of college credit. Here is the best news I'm going to share with you all day. It's probably the best news we've had at Tennessee Achieves in quite some time. We had a 100% success rate with this program. All 29 students that participated finished the program, earned all 9 hours of learning support and 9 hours of college credit. Students that were going to start a full semester behind, starting this week, a full semester ahead. So really excited about that program and the outcomes that we had there. The last piece that you see here is our complete coaching model. We have realized 7 years into Tennessee Promise that our low-income students in Tennessee still don't go to college at rates as high as their peers. They don't graduate from college at rates as high as their peers, even though we've made it tuition free. So we now have 17 full-time staff members that are working directly with our low-income population. They're reaching out, they're building relationships, they're getting to know these students, and they're coaching them through their college careers. Happy to report that since we launched this, those students are now outperforming our general population in terms of college retention from freshman to sophomore year. Again, really exciting early success indicators there. And it's a program we hope to grow. We'll talk about it here in just a few minutes. Go to the next slide. This next slide shows some of our additional reach operating in 90 counties. Mentioned that before, 74% of which are considered rural counties, 35 are at risk or distressed as defined by the Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development. And then again, working in more than 600 high schools in those 90 counties. That represents every public, private, and homeschool cooperative in those 90 counties. Partner with 67 colleges across the state, and then you can see a breakdown of exactly where it is our students are going. Almost 80% of them exercise the community college option, probably no big surprise there. The pretty even split then amongst our TCAT and four-year partners. Next slide, please. You can see that we work with more than 60,000 high school seniors annually. When you pair that with the college students that we're working with, we are working with more than 90,000 students every single year. This next line, for those of us that have been here since pretty much the beginning, to stop and think about the scope at which we work. Initially working with 490 students in Knoxville, now working with 60,000 students annually. Kind of have to pinch myself sometimes and think about where we came from to where we are now. And this next line kind of demonstrates some of that scale at which we operate. 89% of all high school seniors in Tennessee come through the Tennessee Achieves program. When you pair that with the work that the Ayers Foundation is doing in their 5 counties, well over 90% of seniors in Tennessee apply for Tennessee Promise, but 89% of all seniors in Tennessee are Tennessee Achieves students. 78% of all students that enroll as first-time, full-time freshmen at our community colleges are Tennessee Achieves students, and the number we're really proud of, 86% of all Tennessee community college graduates are Tennessee Achieves students. These numbers, again, they continue to kind of blow our mind a little bit and shock us when you stop and think about the fact that we started with 490 students in one county, but it is what drives us to wake up every day and do this work. And we are always excited to think about the scope at which we work, how we can provide more opportunities for these students and ultimately move the needle for our state. The next slide has a little bit of demographic information. 56% of our students are eligible for the federal Pell Grant, which means they come from low-income households. 40% of our students self-report as the first in their family to go to college. This number, I think, skews a little bit low. One, there's not a great definition of what exactly it means to be a first-generation college student. Two, when you're looking at the fact that 44% of adults in Tennessee have a post-secondary credential, the fact that only 40% of the next generation is reporting as a first-generation college student seems a little bit low to me. It's probably a little bit higher than that, but this is what they self-report on the FAFSA. Then the next line here, you see 51% of our students are majoring in either a health or a STEM-related field. 27% of our students are majoring in a health science field. When you look at the nursing shortage we have across Tennessee, it's really promising. The other thing this data point shows me is that our students are they're getting credentials in our most in-demand fields in Tennessee, which means that when they graduate, they're going to be desirable for our employers. They're going to find meaningful employment. It's a really good stat there that more than half of our students are majoring in our most in-demand fields across the state. At the bottom, you can see we pay $32 million annually for the scholarship piece of Tennessee Promise. Comes out to about $1,100 per student. And then we operate on a $2.5 million annual budget, the vast majority of which is privately funded. Next slide. Take a look at some of our program demographics. You can see how Shelby County stacks up against the rest of the state. Clear right off the bat in terms of your Black and African American population, significantly higher than the state average, the white population significantly lower. Much more diverse population in Shelby County than what we see across the rest of the state in terms of our student makeup. See the same thing when you look at this estimated family contribution. If you're eligible for a Pell Grant, again, that means that you're coming from a low income household, coming in at a clip 12 percentage points higher than the state average, and then a much higher rate of first generation college students. So what this slide shows me here is that your students are much more diverse than the rest of the state. They are coming from lower income households, and they're more likely to be the first in their family, which typically means that we've got, when you're looking at first gen and low income, a more at-risk student. So those non-financial supports are going to mean more for students in Shelby County than in a lot of our other counties, and that we need to continue to dig in to provide all of these non-financial supports for our students in Memphis and in the broader Shelby County. Next slide, please. Take a look at our local benchmarks. First thing you see here is our FAFSA filing rate. Statewide, 86% of our Tennessee Promise students filed a FAFSA. We dipped from 90% in the previous year. Shelby County at 82, which also took a little bit of a dip. I think this is a direct correlation of the fact that due to COVID, students in Shelby County were not in school during the FAFSA filing season. Saw the same thing in Davidson County, our two largest school districts. Students were not in school. Causes us to take a dip statewide, causes us to take a dip locally. Our counselors across the state and in Shelby County do an amazing job of working with students to make sure the FAFSA is no longer a barrier. They pull students out of class, and they just weren't able to do that last year. And so we've seen a little bit of a hit there. I can tell you that we are going to continue to work really, really hard with this upcoming class of 2022 to make sure that we get those rates back up around that 90% benchmark. Community service, mentioned this piece of our program earlier. Statewide, almost 3.4 million hours of community service has been completed. Our board chairman, Randy Boyd, says that makes us the largest community service organization in Tennessee. We don't know if that's true or not. No one has stood up yet and said it's not. We're going to run with it until someone tells us otherwise. You can see almost 267,000, or sorry, over 267,000 hours of community service completed there locally. I hope that we're seeing that on the Southwest campus. I hope we're seeing it in your schools. I hope that your nonprofits are seeing the great work that is being done by our students. Additionally, we surveyed our students recently about their community service. Over 90% of them reported that they enjoy the community service component. We were really glad to hear that. So on top of the good work that they're doing for our communities, they seem to really be enjoying themselves, which makes us happy. Next slide, please. This will probably be the most important slide that we look at today, and that is your student progress. Shelby County, by far, our largest applicant pool. To give you an idea, you see almost 8,000 students applying from Shelby County. It's from the class of 2019. Davidson is second, usually at about 4,500 to 4,700 applicants. So almost twice the size of our next largest applicant pool. more than 1,300 students enrolling in college from Shelby County with Tennessee Promise. 68% of them that begin college in the fall come back for their sophomore year, which is above the state average, which is really exciting news for Shelby County there. The next line, though, is the line that keeps us all up at night, and that's your 3-year graduation rate. 17%, which is about half of what we see across the state. Here is what I will tell you is the win, though, in Shelby County. When we launched tnAchieves in Memphis in 2012, the 3-year graduation rate at Southwest Community College was about 4%. So since 2012 to 2021, we have increased the college going rate from 4 to 17. We've quadrupled it in 10 years. So we are moving in the right direction. It is really hard, I know, to celebrate a 17% graduation rate. Statewide, 35 is hard. When we launched tnAchieves in 2008, the statewide community college graduation rate was 14%. So again, we're moving in the right direction, moved it about 2.5 times, 4 times here locally, going in the right direction, but certainly want to dig in and make sure that we can increase these rates. Next slide, please. Let's look at some outcomes across the state. First year retention rate for the community college population, Tennessee Promise and otherwise, all the students at the community college, meaning they start their freshman year and come back their sophomore year, is 53%. tnAchieves students at eligible institutions is 67%, and students that go through our program and go to college anywhere is 74%. These are students that apply for Tennessee Promise and decide to go to the University of Memphis, UT Martin, MTSU, TSU, UT, wherever it may be, but they were given a mentor. They got support from our staff. We helped them with their FAFSA, 74% anywhere. Our 6-year graduation rate, 35% of our students that go to community college will graduate within 6 years. And at tnAchieves, it's 51%. A couple of different populations fall into this 51%. These are your students that go to Southwest, earn their associate's degree, and then transfer or go to work. It's also your students that go to Southwest for a year, get their core classes knocked out, and then transfer on to Memphis or a four-year university and earn their bachelor's degree within 6 years. Again, 51% is a little bit hard to celebrate, but you got to remember where we started, where the general population is moving in the right direction. Here on the right side of the screen are a couple of things that we're doing to impact these outcomes. Talked about our summer programs earlier. Not only are they successful in preparing students for college, but students that participate in our summer programs increase their retention from their freshman to sophomore year by 34%. So they begin college more prepared and they're more successful when they go. The complete coaching model that I mentioned earlier increases student retention by 23%. Again, those are our low income students across Tennessee. And then a program that we are really excited about that is one of our newer programs is a program called Knox Promise. It is funded by a private donation from the Haslam family in Knox County that allows us to do 2 things. First, every single Knox County student that goes to college eligible for Tennessee Promise gets a coach, regardless of income. So remember, complete coaches, low-income students. We have 2 complete coaches working with your students at Southwest. It's the only college where we have 2. But Knox Promise, every student gets a coach, regardless of income. The second thing it allows us to do is provide what we call completion grant funding. Maybe a more familiar term would be emergency grant funding, but we are able to pay for students' books, for their gas. We have figured out how we can pay for students to Uber to campus where it can only go from their house to a college campus. We have a student who her mom was homeless and she was at home with her stepdad and 7 siblings and were paying their utility bill because they couldn't afford it. We've had a student in Knoxville who found herself in an abusive relationship and we paid for her transitional housing. We pay for students' grocery bills if they can't afford food. Really exciting news is that students in that program, most of which go to Pellissippi State Community College, the local college there in Knoxville, Pellissippi has reported back to us that their highest achieving population through the pandemic is the Knox Promise cohort. They have the highest retention rates through the pandemic so far. we have really wonderful support from our General Assembly here in Tennessee, and we have for the last 7 years. This year, they have set aside $1 million in a 4-year pilot program that is allowing us to take these completion grants statewide. So $250,000 a year. Every student in Tennessee that's eligible for Tennessee Promise, there's an income cap. It is our very lowest income students that is eligible for this program. Got an email from us on Monday morning, letting them know they're eligible to apply for these completion grants. Tell you, we have seen them come in. We had a student, one that wrote in today. One of the quotes out of her application was that her refrigerator is empty. So we're going to help her pay for food. We had a student up in the Upper Cumberland area let us know this week that her mother has recently gotten a new boyfriend, and they are, sounds like, abusing alcohol and drugs, and she's living with a friend, and that she can't afford to drive to and from campus. We're hearing some really, unfortunately, heartbreaking stories, but we're able to provide support for these students that we've never been able to before. What we're hoping is that with this pilot program, we can increase outcomes and go back to our General Assembly and increase funding so that we can take Knox Promise statewide. It costs about $5 million a year for us to give every student a coach and really provide grants at the level we would like, but we are working on it. If we can move the needle with this pilot program, I think we're going to be able to do it. Next slide, please. Next is a snapshot of your students broken out by ethnicity next to what it looks like statewide. So unfortunately in Tennessee, there are still some pretty large equity gaps in terms of how our students are doing based on where they fall in this ethnicity chart here. And what we're seeing is that our white students outpacing our Black and African-American students in graduation by 20%. Honestly, we have got to figure out what to do to close that gap. You see, locally, it's only 10%, but unfortunately for the wrong reasons. It's because both of those populations are doing worse than the state average. So you would look and say, hey, only 10%, that's much better than 20. And then you look and see, well, white students are graduating at a 15% less rate and Black and African-American students at 5%. You can see when it comes to retention statewide, the gaps are not near as big. Also, same thing in Shelby County. The gaps for retention are not near as big. We're losing those students somewhere after they start their sophomore year. We have got to figure out, that's what our coaching model is for, is to make sure those students are successful once they enroll. It's really hard to figure out why we're losing them or where we're losing them. We try to survey students that drop out and we don't get much of a response, but we're really going to dig into that. I'll tell you, one of the things we're hearing this year anecdotally from the colleges, we don't have any data to support this yet, though, is that they're taking these jobs that are available. We know that restaurants are paying a wage they've never paid before. I understand in the short term why students are doing that. What feels like probably really good money, 18, 19, 20 years old, probably will not feel like such great money at 28, 29, 30 years old when you're married with a family to support. Short term, I understand those gains. The long term, though, I'm afraid of the consequences that some of these opportunities may present for students. Next slide, please. Most of the data in our presentations across the state is pretty good until we get to this slide, and then there's some bad news. 2015, you can see that we increased the college going rate in Tennessee by 4.6%. That was the first year of Tennessee Promise. We made steady gains over the next couple of years, plateaued in 18 and 19, COVID hit, and the bottom fell out. Unfortunately, all the gains that we made in 2015 have been erased by the COVID-19 pandemic. So Shelby County, you can see you were hit even harder than the state average. 5 percentage points across the state, looks like about 7.3 percentage points in Shelby County. Early enrollment data is showing us that unfortunately this trend is going to continue. Not going to hopefully continue to go down, but we're going to stay in this mid to upper 50 area. We want to do everything we can to get our college going rate back into the mid 60s, and we could use your help. And that's on this next slide here. What can you do to help us out? Several things. One, we need 9,000 mentors across the state. We need more than any other, we need more Shelby County than any other county, and that's on the slide that we're going to look at here in a minute. But we need mentors to do 3 things. One, serve as that task manager, keeping students on track, making sure that they are completing their financial aid paperwork, submitting community service hours, making progress towards college while remaining eligible for the scholarship. 2, they're that trusted family resource, the person that the students and their parents can reach out to when they don't know the next step, when they have a question, they get a letter from financial aid and they don't know what it means. And then finally, what I've argued is the most important for the last 13 years, as we continue to navigate these uncertain times, just that encouragement piece that, hey, yeah, it's a little crazy out there right now, and we don't know what college is going to look like next year. And, I think those really honest conversations to say that anyone who has ever been to college before struggles at some point in time, right? Like, I was a terrible math student. Other students aren't great at writing papers. We have students that are juggling full-time work and full-time caseload. We met a student at a summer bridge program this year that has a 3-year-old and is working full-time and is going to go to school full-time. And to just say, you know what, like, for anyone that goes to college, it gets hard, and that's okay to feel that way. I think oftentimes really makes a huge difference. Mentoring in 2022 is going to look different than it looks in 2021, which looks significantly different than the first 12 years. If you mentored with us this year, you know that we invested in tnAchieves Connect, which allows you to video chat with students. You can still call, email, text. It also allows you to track them in a way that we have never been able for you to do before. You knew when students submitted their community service hours, just like we did. You knew when they applied to a college. You knew when they enrolled full-time. You were getting that data at the same time we were. That's going to hang with us in 2022. But we surveyed our mentors and heard that 2/3 of our current mentors want an in-person option. So if you mentor with us previous to 2022, you remember those large meetings that we ran. I've been to Germantown High School and it is packed, standing room only. I've been to the meetings we run at the Southwest Gym and they're packed and standing room only. We're not going to go back to that, one for the obvious reasons, but we do want to give you an opportunity to meet with your students in person. Couple of things that we've come up with. One, we're going to run what we call tnAchieves open houses at the community colleges, where we are going to block off a couple of hours, several hours, where you can come meet with your students. There will be a tnAchieves staff person there to answer your questions, get to know them. We're hoping that the college will provide staff and computers where students can apply. We can find out where they are in the application process, complete those files, and make it kind of a one-stop shop. No formal presentation, just an opportunity to meet with them. And then we're going to encourage you to meet with your students on your own. It's not something we've ever done before. We know that our mentors do it. Randy takes his students out for pizza every year. We had a mentor this year who ran her own summer bridge program in her front yard. She pulled a table and chairs out underneath the big shade tree. She had a student come, and she essentially tutored her for the placement test and got her ready to go take it. We know it's been happening, some really cool stories from it. We also, though, want to honor your time and try to keep it at this 1 hour time commitment. Saw a couple of comments pop up here about Connect. One said it was a great tracking tool. We agree. The feedback from our mentors has been extremely positive. We know there's been some challenges getting students to use it. We're working on that as well. And then I saw someone say it doesn't work great with Apple products. They're working on that. They have been, we obviously didn't build that, way beyond any of our nonprofit brains here to build a system that complex. Partner with a third party. We know that there are some Apple, they know there are some issues with Apple. I do believe they've created what they call an app. It's more of a web-based addition to their program, but I do believe now that those video chats should be compatible with a phone. I think that is an update they're making or that they're working on. So more information on that. We can go to the next slide, please. You see, locally, we need 1,210 mentors in Shelby County. Tell you what, the last few years, Shelby County has gotten there or gotten really, really close. We came up just a little bit short this past year. The 2 years previous to that, we found it. And we had come up short a few years prior to that. But I think as we're continuing to navigate this pandemic in terms of getting students into college and solving this college going crisis that we're facing right now, this is the most important piece. There are 31 of us on staff right now, which as employee number 2, when there were only 2 full-time staff members. Again, the fact that we're at 31 is kind of shocking to me most days, but the volume is simply still too large for 31 people to put meaningful supports in the college going process for 60,000 students. But if we find 1,200 mentors in Shelby County to work in groups of 5 or 6, you can put meaningful supports around students, and we can get this trend going back in the right direction. If you've never been a mentor with us before, we'd love to have you. See the website there, tnAchieves.org/mentors. You go on, complete the new mentor application. Returning mentors, you can go on and renew there, or just reply to any of the emails that Tyler or I or Chrissy or Ben sends you, and we'll get you in the hopper. Next slide, please. The other thing that we could really use your help with is getting connected in your community. If you are a part of a civic club, or if we could get into your chamber meetings, Leadership Memphis I know is strong. Anywhere we can come and tell this story, we can come and do a big Tennessee Promise statewide presentation. We can drill down into your Shelby County numbers specifically and do a presentation like that. We also have content available for you. If you are part of an organization that has a newsletter or an email blast, we can write up the pieces for you. You'll just email us at mentors@tnAchieves.org. We will get all of that to you, anything you need. You can then change it around, add your testimony. But we're ready to come visit the community. I was at the Ripley Rotary Club a couple of weeks ago. We're ready to be out in your community, visiting with your stakeholders and presenting this opportunity to them. And then finally, the Tennessee Promise application for students is live. As we saw earlier, more than 90% of students across Tennessee are applying. So those numbers are good. Again, a huge testament to the work that our professional school counselors are doing. But it never hurts, right, to reach out to that family that you know has a senior and make sure that they are applying. Final slide. Last one here. I had a phone. Chrissy was supposed to join you today. Unfortunately, she got a phone call about 20 minutes before this. She has a sick kid that she had to go pick up from school. That's Chrissy's contact information there. My email is the same as Chrissy's. It just says Graham instead of Chrissy. That's her personal cell phone number. You can find mine on the website or in any of those emails I send you. You see a student success story here as well. But please reach out to us anytime that you have questions, that you have comments, feedback. Saying it for years, our program is only as successful as the communities that we serve allow us to be, and Memphis has certainly embraced us, and we're so appreciative of that. But I see we have some questions. I think Megan may hop on here and feed me some of those, but continue. If you have questions, put them in the chat, put them in the Q&A. I want to get those answered before we leave here today.
Yeah. Hi, Graham. The first question is, do you expect the college orientation process to continue exclusively online? There's some concern about this particular mentor students only completing orientation and advising just a couple of weeks ago. So anything you can speak to in that space?
You know, I don't want to speak on behalf of the colleges. I was on many of the college campuses, including Southwest this summer, visiting our bridge programs. I know specifically at Vol State Community College, they were having in-person orientation. So my guess is they'll probably go back to some kind of hybrid model. Strictly a guess, though. Again, I don't want to speak on behalf of any of the colleges. My guess is once COVID, hopefully we can get COVID trending back down in the right direction, that we're going to see things go back to a more in-person based approach. But again, can't speak for the colleges completely on that.
The next question is from Kelly. Any feedback on having non-local mentors?
So I just got a message from one of our team members. I'm going to address that one second. Advising appointments are still available in person. So sounds like Southwest is still offering some in-person opportunities there for students. Approach to, yeah, we are willing to work with non-local mentors now that Connect is available. So even next year, if you want to exercise those in-person options, you can, not required to go meet them in person. We actually had a group of professional counseling master's students from a university in California that I met at a conference a couple of years ago that reached out for this year for the class of 2021 and saw that we went online and asked if they could participate. And I think the vast majority of them, about 30 of them, are actually working with your students in Memphis to help close the gap in communities where we didn't quite find enough. But because of Connect and that layer of support that we have there, we are allowing students, allowing mentors from out of state or In Davidson County, for example, some of the counties around us don't find enough, and we have mentors working with like 3 or 4 Davidson County students and like 2 or 3 Cheatham County students. So we're able to do a little mixing and matching there that we've never done before.
The last question I see here, the question is there a list of resources and school counselors' contact information for non-local mentors?
Is there a list of school counselor contact information?
Yeah, I think what she's asking is just a way to get like resources as a mentor for the high schools in which you're working with those students.
You know, we have that internally. I don't know that we're going to post that out there for the world, but I do think that you can find that on the individual school websites. You can probably find the contact information. Our entire staff listing is on the website though. And so if you ever have questions specific to Memphis, Chastity Robertson is our most experienced coach in the Shelby County area. I think she's on this webinar with us today. We have 2 other, well, now 3 other staff members, Rosa, Christine, and Esther, all there working directly with your students. So they are great resources for you. They're always available, but our whole team is. I know as a mentor, you hear a lot from Tyler and myself. Reach out to us and we'll do anything we can to connect you to the right people. Anyone else? Is that everything, Megan?
One last question just popped up. The question is about when we will verify, or the schools will verify enrollment for the scholarship, if you want to speak to that, Graham.
When the colleges will verify enrollment?
Yes, the question is about, yes.
So the schools will, I guess, solidify their enrollment on the 14th day of classes is the standard across the state, I think across the country. So we will know more then, but even then it's not quite as clean cut as it sounds, where they just take a snapshot of exactly where they are on the 14th day and send that over to us. It will take us, a lot of times we don't actually know which of our students are enrolled well until into October or November. And even then it's not always the most accurate. So the best way for you to know if the students that you're working with, if they are enrolled and going to class every day, is to just ask them. I know that's not a super helpful information or super helpful on our end. I wish we could tell you, but we a lot of times don't know until much later in the semester.
That was the final question.
All right. Well, again, I want to thank everyone for making the time to be here today. We really appreciate your support. If you have those opportunities for us to go out and tell the story, we're ready. We are well on our way to recruiting the 9,000 mentors. We're about 1/10 of the way there. So a long way to go, but we are ready to get out there and hit the road and come and visit your community. And thanks again for being here today and for everything you do for our program. Looking forward to another great year.